Morning guys, welcome back to the channel. This video is about equipment really, so if you're not interested in those sorts of videos, then obviously you're more than welcome to give this one a miss. But I will be back to my normal type of video next week, you know, where I'm out on location photographing wildlife, lots of great pictures and lots of footage, and I've got a really good video coming up next week. But the fact of the matter is, equipment is important, especially for wildlife photography. And what we basically need is a big focal length, because especially in the UK our animals are reasonably small and they're generally a long way away, so we need a long focal length. And we've got two choices. We've got the choice of either prime lens or a big zoom lens, and I use both actually. And anyone that's been watching my channel on a regular basis, you'll know that I use a 600mm prime lens and at the moment a 200 to 500mm zoom lens. Now Nikon have just brought out a 180 to 600 big zoom lens for their Z mirrorless camera system, and I've been waiting for this lens for ages. And the question is, are these super zooms good for wildlife photography? And I think this video will be useful regardless of whether you're a Nikon user, Canon, Sony, Olympus or whatever, because all those camera manufacturers have got their own big zoom lenses. Sony have got a 200 to 600, Olympus a 150 to 400, Canon a 100 to 500, and you've got Sigma and Tamron. They also make big zooms, a 150 to 600. So this new Nikon lens, 180 to 600mm, and it's a great range I think for wildlife photography. But should you buy a zoom lens or a prime lens? And there's lots of considerations to take into account, but I think they both do different jobs and I use both. I think price is a big thing. The new Nikon lens is going to be around about £1,800, and if you look at a 600mm prime lens, you're looking at something like £12,000–14,000. So price is a massive thing, isn't it? And if you want to get into wildlife photography, it's probably not going to be with a prime lens. You're probably going to go for a zoom lens. Now, is one better than the other? Obviously a zoom lens is going to be a bit sharper, it's going to have a slightly quicker autofocus system, and it's generally going to give you a wider aperture, so that means it gathers in more light, and that's good for wildlife photography, especially if we're shooting in the evening or in the morning when light levels are low. But does that mean you can't use a zoom lens for wildlife photography? No, of course it doesn't. And there's many times when I've been using my prime lens and I would have been better off using the zoom lens, you know, because if you're in say a hide and you're in a fixed position and that animal comes really close, you can't change the focal length on a prime lens, so what you've got is what you've got. And I've missed shots because the animals have been too close. And I did a video about 5 or 6 weeks ago where I had this heron. I think it was a heron chasing a grey egret, or it might have been the other way round. But anyway, I had they're two big birds and I was reasonably close. And this heron chased this egret, and I got some great slow motion footage, but only a few seconds, because they came so close, they filled the frame and they were too big in the frame. Whereas if I'd had the zoom lens, I could have zoomed out and I could have got a lot more footage. So the fact of the matter is, a super zoom won't have as wide a maximum aperture as a prime lens, which means throwing the background out of focus is harder. It won't have quite as fast autofocus as a prime lens, and it won't be quite sharp. But there are times when it is the best option. So to start this video off, certainly you can take great wildlife pictures with a super zoom, and I do that on a regular basis. Now, talking of the Nikon 180 to 600, this is not a review of that lens because it's not out for me to buy yet, and I've not got a big enough channel for Nikon to just give me one to test. So I won't go through all the stuff that other channels have done, you know, about autofocus speed, sharpness, image quality. As far as I can tell, it's all really good. The autofocus looks great. It's got silent autofocusing, so that's great for video. It's a very sharp lens, and it's a f6.3, so although it hasn't got a maximum aperture, that's still okay. So that's all good. So the fact of the matter is, I will definitely be buying this lens, because it will replace my 200 to 500. Now when it comes to other advantages, the other thing with a super zoom like this is it's lighter and it's smaller. My prime lens is massive and it's really heavy, and that's great if you're not hiking around great distances, but for anything where you've got that lens on your shoulder all day, or you're carrying it all day, it's really heavy. So my zoom lens would be a better option. So with the zoom lens, we've got multiple framing options. So the flexibility is superb. It's smaller and lighter, and it's cheaper. And I think all those things are great, and you can get brilliant wildlife photographs using that zoom lens, or any of the major manufacturers' zoom lenses. And then when it comes to the minuses, well, the biggest minus will be the smaller maximum aperture, which means that it's not going to be as good in low light, because you have to increase the ISO number, so the image becomes slightly more grainy or noisier. And the other thing is, it's harder to throw that background out of focus and make that really soft, out of focus background, so that your subject leaps out from the frame. But with careful framing and making sure you've got a decent distance between your subject and the background, you can still get a nice background. The pluses for the prime lens will be it's faster, and it's easier to throw that background out of focus. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching, and if you have enjoyed it, if you can give it a thumbs up, a like, that would be great. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, if you can consider subscribing, that would be brilliant. So thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now. Hi guys, there was a couple of things I forgot to mention. One is the build quality. It looks really good for this new Nikon 180-600 zoom. And the other thing is, and I think almost much more important, or as important, is it's got an internal zoom in function. So in other words, when you zoom from 180 to 600, the lens bell doesn't extend. The zooming is done within the lens, and that's good for two reasons. One, if the camera lens is on a gimbal, it doesn't alter the balance of that lens, and secondly, it doesn't draw in extra dust as you're zooming in and out, because with the ones where the barrels extend, as you zoom in and out, you can pull dust into that lens. And then last but not least, it makes it much better when it comes to weather sealing. So it's better when you're out and it's raining or you're in extreme weather conditions. So I think definitely a super zoom is a fantastic way to get into wildlife photography. And if you only have a super zoom, like a 180 to 600 in this case, or 200 to 600 or whatever, you can take brilliant wildlife pictures, and you don't necessarily need a prime. That will be my sort of take on the situation. I love having my 600, but if I could only have a 180 to 600 then, or 150 to 600, or any of those zoom lenses, then I'm going to be able to take great wildlife pictures. So yeah, let me know in the comments section below. Do you shoot with primes? Do you shoot with big zooms, or do you shoot with both? Which do you prefer? So yeah, again, bye for now guys, and I'll speak to you on the next video.